Safe to say Warhammer 3 ended up a lot better at the end of 2022 than it did at the start. Now, I still think we have maybe 1 or 2 patches to go till we finally get a product that's better than Mortal Empires, but we're starting to get close, and I think there's 10 steps which I've gone through, which I think that if Create Assembly implement, or even just become parts or spur on ideas that are similar, can really make sure that Warhammer 3 reaches its potential and makes it the game that it can be by the end of this calendar year. Welcome to Multi-Armies, and this is the 10 ways that CA can save Warhammer 3 in 2023. I'm not going to waste any time on this next one, it's just simply, number 1 is DLC. Of course, DLC is going to expand the game, people love it, more content is better, and they typically make this palatable to the player base by often complementing it with something that's free. So the free DLC, for people that don't want to spend, I think it's a great setup and a great sales pitch. Having some DLC supported by FLC is just awesome. Now, we've got quite a wide player base. This game's been around since 2016, and there's different levels of difficulty, different types of players, and I want to try to make one of these points that will address each of those player groups, because I think that we need to start seeing ourselves as one of a big large player group. This competition between which difficulty is bad or good or better, and if there's one idea I'd like to advocate for, is that we stop competing with each other and look at ourselves as one big community, because your Total War experience is an individual experience. If you're a legendary level player, you can help out those players or even just cheer people on. Every time someone tells me they've passed their very first normal campaign, I'm like, that's awesome. It's a hard game. It's a hard concept to get your head around. So this is your own individual journey, and yeah, we need to welcome new players through the door. But that being said, we also have the more experienced players who tend to stick with the game, and they tend to become some of the most avid fans, avid customers, because they're always trying to get better. And I guess I myself fall under this category. My channel is oriented around doing very hard legendary without any cheese or exploits, to prove that you don't need to cheat or be cheesy to dominate just cold sound tactics. If you're interested in that, please check out my channel. There's a raft of things here, and they're designed for new players, legendary players, and the rest. So I don't think anyone's really quite doing it at the moment, so let's go to the most experienced here, and we need an Iron Man mode. Number 2 is an Iron Man mode, just like in Crusader Kings 3, and this should only be legendary, right, or any other difficulty. But when you start your campaign, you cannot change the difficulty, you cannot load characters to bypass RNG, and you cannot use mods to bypass difficulty. This is only going to appeal to the most hardcore fans, and right, if you're a player that's not interested in it, just don't use it. That's fine, but I really do feel that the lack of such a feature, now the game is so moddable, has potentially cheapened it. Everyone knows that you can just get the console up and just dial in the characters you want. We were going to start running competitions on our server, but people are like, I can just cheat. How do I know they haven't cheated? And to some players, they think, why do you need the self-validation? But some of us do, and that's cool. But knowing that someone has actually, with their own hands, pushed past what we think could be done is just amazing when we have a way and a stamp of approval to say they did it without any help. Number 3, now we're going to the players that aren't even with us yet. New brothers and sisters that are going to join us in the Total War Warhammer online community. And Legend of Total War did an amazing job by doing a petition showing that we don't care about what we paid. We want more people in this community. This tends to be more of a mature player base, and as a consequence, I think that we just want more players in here. We understand that it's good for the game, it's good for the bottom line, it's good for the interest in the game to have more people in here. Legend of Total War's petition shows that there is a good number of players that support making Immortal Empires free. Now, I'd like to just add my own 2 cents to this. I don't think that that will fix it. The problem is, on the good side, we have Kislev and Cathay, 2 brand new factions, and they've got no existing fanfare, so you're relying on the chaos. Unless someone is a hardcore chaos fan, there's not much in there when you jump into Immortal Empires, and I think the game needs its poster boy. Rather than give Immortal Empires out for free, give a free demo as Franz. Franz has been putting asses in seats since 2016. He is still the most popular person, and just let them buy the game. If someone's bought the game Warhammer 3, have they not earned just a taste of it as everyone's favorite Chad, Franz? It's an excellent campaign. Just hopping in here, like, why is this a good example of a good campaign? So I've just, this is Sister Twilight campaign, it's basically finished. Why is it a good campaign? Well, Reichland is right here. You can expand this way, north, south, east, west. You can see all the races that the game has to offer. Each time you restart, it can go in so many different directions. No 2 campaigns are likely to be exactly the same, and you can really make it whatever you want it to be. Just give out a demo of a really popular character. That's one thing I would really love to see, and I think would definitely bring more people in than not. Hopefully a few run-throughs as Franz will get that intrigue. They can discover the different races around and go, alright, I want to try that. count me in. Just a quick reminder guys, if you are enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing, it really helps out. Ask any question in the comments, I answer everything. And if you'd like to talk strategy, feel free to join the Discord. Cheers. The average player base that are playing on normal difficulty or even easy difficulty, I think without even realizing the current auto-resolve system and experience system is really badly hamstringing your long-term enjoyment of the game, because even if I found my battle skills were actually waning at one point because I was simply auto-resolving. So to give context here, one thing is they fixed sack spamming, which was just stupid to me. It made no sense that by just torturing the same village indefinitely, you got more experience from that than defeating two armies. So I do love how the scale and proportion of the victory does actually matter now, but the problem is that auto-resolve completely eliminates the enemy army at the loss, and that means you get all of that experience and gold due to that defeat. This completely disincentivizes you to want to fight the battles. Now you can exploit Warhammer 2 and get 2 battles out of it to get more experience, and whilst I'm kind of glad we don't have to do that now, that at least gave us some reason to fight the battles. You are better off fighting the battles then. Now you are better off auto-resolving the battles. Now add that into the fact that auto-resolve is really overpowered in the player's side. You don't end up having to fight many battles at all on normal difficulty. Keeping the player on the campaign map, I think, is going to really result in a lot of fatigue for a lot of players. Now whilst I said before that we should have an Iron Man difficulty where you can't change the difficulty, that being said, for the average player, I think it's fantastic that you can just drop it down to easy and auto-resolve your way through if something gets a bit too much from you. I love this get out of jail free card, because at the end of the day, you've invested tens of hours into your campaign. Just giving yourself a one-off break, or whenever you need a break, just do it. Your real life time is worth it. So I support this ability, and I think it's really great to make it accessible and not have people have their campaigns crashing on them. But that being said though, just at least the normal level and just bring everything up a little bit more, because currently the amount of battles where the auto-resolve delivers something I could never do is just obscene. It is just obscene how much more powerful the auto-resolve is. But you should be incentivized to do it yourself if you need to avoid the losses. I think that's the sweet spot. We just need auto-resolve to be at a point where it's a bit of extra loss, and that loss is what you trade for your time. Newer players aren't going to get the experience on the battlefield, and they're missing out on half the experience. So point 4, just readdressing the way experience is spread out, as well as the auto-resolve. Number 5, streamlining character management. Now, as we get up through the campaign, you are going to have a lot of characters and they're going to level up. Now you can choose for them to auto level up, but let's face it, you're going to probably have 1 or 2 rough builds that will either coincide with your playstyle or promote what that faction is inherently good at. The RPG element of this game is awesome. So awesome you don't really want to just completely bypass it, but we just need to have, similar to the tech tree, the ability to just say hold shift and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just drop the points as they will come. So that way you don't need to keep on tuning in. Even at the end of the turn, just prompt that this is the next technology, not a problem. The other one is please stop putting our characters on mounts without asking the player first. Sometimes you go to do a siege and you can't scale the walls because you forgot the guy's turned level 7 and now he's on a damn horse. Just come down with a yes or no. Mount unlocked. Horse, yes or no, please. That would be great. And the last one here is heroes that are just scouring the campaign map as agents. Can we please just have a box that we can tick saying, don't remind me of this guy? So the end of turn reminders, I love them. They're excellent. They're so good, especially for new players that might be worried they're missing something. But goddamn, I am so sick of having to go through each individual scout and just say that they haven't moved this turn. Can we please either have a box available on heroes saying, don't ask me for movement, or ignore it for 5 turns? That would be great too. Number 6, sieges. Oh my god, I used to think that they weren't that bad. I was one of those apologists, and goddamn, they ground me into dust. I don't look forward to doing them still, and they do need to be readdressed. But can I just say, CA, thank you so much for listening to the players and going back to the system you have now. The system you have now allows the players to use defensive sieges, which are much more fun than when you're attacking, but it also means that we don't get stuck with endless offensive sieges. So I know you spent a lot of time and money on that new system. Thank you for listening to the players and giving us what we want. So that's a big win, but still it could be much better. I think we need less of these supply points that could maybe be in the middle of a settlement and then propping up a tower miles away. It should basically just be terrain based, similar to Attila. And while we're here, oh my god, the pathfinding is awful. Please look at Total War Attila. You can easily navigate your guys around, move their boxes around, and you don't get this janky thing where the movement boxes just simply disappear. I'm a veteran of this series and even I find it janky. My heart honestly goes out to newer players that are like, what the hell is going on? Number 7, public order. It does nothing after a certain number of turns. I don't know what it is with the scaling, but once you get on top of your campaign, there's a theme at the moment that once you hit turn 40 or even turn 50, just the campaign difficulty falls to pieces. I'll touch on that in a minute. But I recall trying to make a settlement rebel just to do a bit of science, and on legendary difficulty with no public order buildings, I couldn't even raid my own territory to make it rebel. Unless it's a recent conquest or the terrain is maybe orange or red, there's no need to build these buildings almost any of the time. And that takes me into corruption, which again does nothing. I could be making all this up, so don't quote me, but I feel like what happened was they reduced the rate that it would decline to make it a bit more palatable. But this seems to have carried through into Immortal Empires, where the best way to get rid of corruption is ignore it. Just ignore it. It just goes. You don't need to build buildings. In Warhammer 2, you had to build shrines, all sorts of buildings to combat that corruption if you're around Skaven, vampires, and it added an extra layer of depth, and it made you prioritize who you wanted to get rid of because they were bleeding corruption into your settlements. But you don't need to now, just ignore it. Ignore corruption. Please make corruption do something again. Make corruption great again. Number 8, addressing power creep. By and large, I think that CA have done an excellent job of bringing the Warhammer 1 and 2 races into Game 3, and they feel and fight really, really well. But there's just, mainly in the form of some of the skill trees, for some of the heroes and lords, they still need a little bit more oomph to feel like they're at the power level of particularly the Game 2 races. Now, this is not endemic through the entire game, but a good example is the Empire Captain, who really feels head and shoulders below where he should as a hero. Just saying, by and large, most things have been implemented really well. See my tier list to see how Mortal Empires has transitioned into Immortal Empires and where all the factions have landed. Number 9, campaign AI, and man, this is currently a massive issue. Currently, after turn 30, 40, or even 50, the campaign just turns to a complete autopilot. Everyone turns into a potato. It is just silly how easy the game gets after this point if you know how to control your engagements, geography, and your diplomacy. The AI loves sacking settlements, but so often won't take them. Even when they can, you get so many free chances, and it makes not a lot of sense. The other thing is that a lot of the time they don't attack with multiple stacks when they really should. I mean, here we have a very rare example of them bringing all of their armies together to fight another round of enemy armies. But this is such a small example. I mean, I've used the Sisters of Twilight here to see that all around the map you cannot find multiple stacks of armies anywhere in the entire damn world. It is just silly how difficult it is to see if when they have more than one army. Like, look, they're all spread out, they're not deciding to do anything. Now, Lightning Strike used to be mandatory in Mortal Empires. You don't even bring it now because you don't get attacked by multiple stacks, and by virtue of that, the game gets far too easy when you can start fielding multiple stacks of your own, and it really marks the point where you just start snowballing and there's no difficulty to be had. Number 10, last and not least, is the endgame crisis, or at least the end of the campaign. Recently, I've had a few recreational campaigns on Legendary Very Hard, and I've found a really nice sweet spot by just having the turn 100 to 110 start of just one crisis army. Makes an awesome endgame experience because the whole map loosely holds together, but you get to have this one final grudge match with another superpower. It's over, your campaign's done by say turn 120, 130, which is usually the part where you're starting to really check out if you haven't already. I love the options and customization that they're bringing to the table, but is this maybe a case of trying to please everyone and in fact pleasing nobody? Maybe doubling down and focusing hardcore on having one big bad for you to fight at the end of your campaign to add a nice bow, a nice feeling of conquest, and getting over the odds at the very end is a nice, sweet, triumphant way to finish your campaigns. It's been the most fun I've had where a campaign hasn't been grinding away, order resolving through settlements. It's been about a couple of major confrontations, putting them in their place, and then seeing that glorious endgame screen coming up. I think it's just the right way to finish campaigns, but there's also some issues to be had. Currently, the AI doesn't confederate at all, and I can understand why they do that because it stops snowballing like say for the High Elves, but maybe when it hits the endgame crisis, this is when we should allow everything to confederate and everything comes together as superpowers to either fight, hold together, or blow everyone else up. Or maybe across the board they should make it that confederations only become available after a certain amount of time. I can't quite put my finger on it because they did need to slow confederations down. Like, I'm famous for confederating all the High Elf Lords by turn 30, so slowing down confederations makes some sense, but we might need to allow the AI to confederate to make the late game a little bit more challenging. And these are my 10 recommendations to get Warhammer 3 to hit goals in 2023 and become the game it should be. If you have liked the video, please like and sub, it helps out. Discord in the description. This is Elven Plot Armor. See you next time.